I should have gone over this more.
All right, everybody, welcome to the AFC Northcast. I'm Justin, your resident Browns fan, joined here as always with our resident Steelers fan. That's right, Chad, taking a
Hey,
sip of his
Yinzers.
brew, and our resident Ravens fan, Joey.
What's happening?
And as always, missing is our resident Bengals fan. And that's right, it could be you. It could be you. Look, if you can happen to manage to find a single Bengals fan out there that enjoys talking about their team even a little bit, let us know. It'd be awesome to have a little bit of an extra perspective. But in the meantime, it's just the three of us. You're stuck with us, giving you the best of the AFC North. That's right. And by the best, we mean the top three teams of the AFC North. So, that being said, week two, some interesting things happened. Interesting things, and that's what we're here to talk about on this episode. So we're going to give you the reviews of all the games that happened from the AFC North, and then we're also going to go into the AFC North offensive and defensive player of the week as we see it. And that's what we're going to give you this show. Before we get into that, though, look, Pigskin Pick'em. I don't think Yahoo calls it Pigskin Pick'em. I think they just call it Yahoo Pick'em or something. I don't know. But that's still going on. We actually had someone new join this week, just this week. Julie, I think you know who that is, don't you, Joey?
It's
Harry
Banana's wife.
That's right. She didn't do too bad either. And I looked at all the picks, too. She didn't just pick all the ones that Harry Bananas did either. So, hey, she did all right.
It's 2019, Justin. Women can make their own decisions.
Well, Sam always asks me for picks, so I always get really skeptical. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a chauvinist fucking pig. Thanks for calling me out on that, Joey. Nobody thought it until you said it.
We were all thinking it.
That's all right.
Harsh.
That being said, Sam didn't do very well this week. But then again, just saying. She was, second from the bottom. So, just saying. I hope she's listening.
Yeah, from the other room.
Yeah, right. She's got it pulled up on her phone. I guess I'll be sleeping in this room tonight, so that'll be good. Just lay myself out here. But anyways, that being said, join the Pigskin Pick'em, you and your significant others. It's good stuff. It's good fun. It's good stuff. Yeah, it's really easy. You just pick who you think is going to win for the week. It's as simple as that. You just click it. You don't even have to do the tiebreakers. I never do. Who the fuck ever does those? When are those ever even used? Out of all the times you've done Pigskin Pick'em, I've never seen it used once. Ever. And I've seen plenty of ties. So I don't know.
I think maybe they're used in the weekly standings when you have four teams that pick 9 games right, and which one goes on top of the group of 4.
I write 0-0 for every score and pick Arizona to be the lowest and highest scoring team.
Because it's the first one.
Nice. Well done. I don't know, have you gotten any of those right yet?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
That being said, you don't have to worry about the tiebreakers because obviously we don't. But anyways, you just pick which team you think's going to win. It's good stuff. Let's see. Let's pull up week 2. Group picks, week 2. Who came out on top? Oh.
My coworker, Brian.
Well, you got Cromartie's kids. Is that your coworker, Brian?
No.
Oh. Well, Brian at AC. That would be the Brian that we're talking about.
He's the overall... at least he's the overall at the end of this week for the season right now.
Well, it's tough because people join late and stuff, right? So, yeah. But and we'll talk about that towards the end of the season. See who started with us and ended with us and who had the most picks and stuff. But for this week, we got Brian, Chad actually also tying with 11. They're a 4-way tie, by the way. Cromartie's kids. I have no idea who that is, but there must be 10 people picking. And then destined for failure. That's Aaron. Damn, I just got him to join the league this week, and he's already
Tater?
fucking... No, Tater's his own. Destined for
Rocky
failure.
Mountain?
No, Aaron is a guy that I know, a friend of ours. He's a Seahawks fan. So,
Ooh.
yeah, boo. Anyways, that being said, join the Pigskin Pick'em, good fun. But let's talk about some AFC North stuff. So, not really a whole ton of news except for what Chad's going to be bringing to us. What's going on,
Dude,
Chad?
you're not going to get a lot of AFC North news as big as this story that I'm about to give you right now.
That's why I
there's
said accept.
two, but this is a big week. The Steelers, in a very un-Steelers-like move, traded a 2020, that's next year, draft pick for Minka Fitzpatrick, safety of the Miami Super Tanks Dolphins.
He's listed as a safety at least, but we'll see.
Yeah, he'll play safety for the
He'll play
Steelers.
safety.
You think so?
In order to make room for a spot, they put Sean Davis, who had a shoulder injury in this game, who is their current free safety, on IR. So he's out for at least 8 weeks.
He a Terp.
So yeah, Minka Fitzpatrick will almost assuredly play free safety for the Pittsburgh Super Steelers.
Cool.
Do you guys like it? The media does not like it.
Really? I don't know.
I don't know what's not to like. The only thing to me that makes it even more interesting, other than the obvious, like, not a typical Steelers type of move, is that it happened the same day we found out that Ben was out for the season. And obviously he's a super value in his second season. He's still got this year and then 3 more, right, on his rookie deal, or 2 more and then a team option, whatever rookie deals are this nowadays.
Yeah,
I
so
think it's
this year plus 2, then team option.
Yeah. So he's under team control longer than Ben's extended for. So yeah, I mean, for the future, it makes sense. He's a known commodity. When you draft a guy, you never really know if you're going to hit. I don't think it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, I like it. So here's the thing: the big players that people are talking about coming out of next year's draft, which is the pick that they traded away, right, are the quarterbacks. And the amount of tanking that the Steelers would have to do that just wouldn't, I mean, even happen to get, like, Tua, right? That's the thing, tank for Tua. Like, they're not going to get him.
Justin Herbert.
Right? So as far as going for that, I just don't see it. And where's the other spot that everybody knows that the Steelers need to heavily improve on? Their defense, right? It's something that they've been trying to bolster ever since, what's his name got, hurt. Shazier got hurt,
Shazier.
right? Exactly. It's something they've been trying to bolster and trying to fix up. So the only other thing on top of that you can think of is maybe wide receiver, but I don't know, man. I just don't feel good. Maybe I just don't have this good sentiment or feeling in my head about first-round wide receivers. I don't know. I feel like there's been many more great wide receivers that come out of later rounds than there have been great ones that come out of the first. I don't know. Is that just emotions talking? The only one I can think of off the top of my head is, like, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, AJ Green. All right, never mind. Maybe we're getting a little deep here. No, but I think you can.
Brown.
I think you can find some really good receivers in other rounds that will surprise you. So I don't know. I think that it's probably the best move for them for the future. I don't hate the move. So, and I know that when the Browns were looking to draft last year, they picked up Baker Mayfield early. I know I'm always going to bring it back to the Browns. I get it. And I was one of the heavy supporters of not picking up Bradley Chubb and picking up a corner or a safety or some type of defensive back, because that's where the Browns needed the most help. And I actually thought they were going to pick up Minka Fitzpatrick, but of course they picked up Denzel Ward instead, which turned out to be successful. So, I mean, I would have been happy to have him on our team. So, even though, like, he hasn't been, I don't know, I guess he hasn't been crazy with the Dolphins, but he hasn't really been playing very consistent positions with the Dolphins. He hasn't been happy with them. Their defense as a whole really has kind of been resting on him, Kiko Alonso, who they just got rid of. So it's tough. But yeah, I like it.
Well, I love it. I love this pick, and I'm going to give you 2 reasons why. One is going to be real short because Joey basically explained it. This pick is about more than this year. So he is signed for 3 years already without the team option. That extends all the way through Big Ben's contract. So if you consider Big Ben your window to win a championship, which many people in the media do, this is a pick and a trade that makes the team better through that window in an affordable way. Now, reason number 2, if you've been following the Steelers secondary over the last number of years, you might know that they're not great at drafting players in the secondary. One of the reasons is inexplicable. They're just not good at it. The other reason is that to get the top players, you have to be in the top 10. And if you think just because Ben is hurt, the Steelers are going to end up with a top 10 pick,
No.
I mean, it's possible, but I don't think it's likely because Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. I'm going to probably say this a lot this year because the Steelers aren't done losing for the year, and you guys are going to be rattling my cage. But this is a team that if you don't think they can make it to 8-8, you haven't been around the last dozen years while Mike Tomlin's been coaching, and he hasn't had perfect rosters. So I think that you had no guarantee of improving your worst position group via the draft next year, and you got a proven commodity for 4 years instead of an unproven commodity for 5. I'll take it. I'm excited. You got the fan base jazzed up. Pittsburgh fans love defensive stars, and we're just going to be all over. You know how many jerseys he's going to sell? He's probably sold 1 million already.
Yeah.
Don't
landed yet.
Mark my words. Don't be surprised if Minkah Fitzpatrick is a Steeler for life.
I would love it.
We'll see.
I'd love it.
Yeah,
I watched his highlight
he could
tape
be
5 times already.
a defensive stalwart. That's right at home in Pittsburgh. He's going to fit right in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I hope everybody's excited. There is not many teams that are 0-2 that do something and have their fan base as excited for week 3 as they were excited for number 2. Everybody is pumped, and he might not even play if he's not caught up enough. But we're fired up. Dude, we're fired up. I can't wait to see Minkah Fitzpatrick running all around doing crazy stuff. I'm just so excited to see him. So, big news in the AFC North. Steelers going crazy, making moves, helping the Dolphins tank, helping themselves get better. Watch out, Ravens. Watch out, Browns. We're coming to get you.
Don't worry, Bengals. You'll still be down there. But, yeah, man. I think an important thing you brought up is that, Steelers fans love hard-hitting defenses, but I think the whole AFC North has really been kind of about that for some time now. Hard-hitting defense, man. It's something that we're all a fan of, at least the 3 of us. So, but, yeah, I don't know. I think he can play week 3. I mean, safety, right? It's just like get the guy that has the ball because somebody else didn't cover him, or blitz. I mean, can't be that hard, right?
I mean,
guys?
The worst thing they can do is give up a long touchdown. They do that every game. So
Exactly.
Hi, Josh.
Sweet. But, yeah, man. I don't know. I like it. So what do you guys think about the tank for Tua? You think that's what they're going for? You think that's what the Dolphins are actually trying to achieve? And do you think they'll be successful with it?
I think their plan is more than just a 1-year thing. But I think if they have the number 1 pick, which don't count the Giants out for that.
Yeah.
BTW. They're a pretty awful football team. I think if they have the number 1 pick and Tua doesn't get hurt or anything like that this year, then he's probably, for a team that doesn't have a quarterback, an apparent quarterback. We'll see how Josh Rosen goes the rest of the year. It just makes sense. You need a quarterback.
Right. What do you think, Chad?
I think it's going to probably work for its very superficial purpose of landing a quarterback, but I don't think that I'm confident that it'll work in the grand scheme of things. And we touched on this a little before we started recording, but I'm nervous about how tanking works in the NFL compared to the NBA because of roster size. I think when you start getting rid of loads and loads of talent, it just takes too many drafts to build up an actual, stable of talent that not only fills out your starting roster, but the inevitable injuries, which would be, 26, 27 key players. Like, it's just a really, really tricky move. People say that it's comparable to the Browns, but I don't really think that the Browns sold off their top talent the way that Miami did, because they either didn't have as much, or that's basically it. They didn't have as many actual top guys as Miami did. And so to me, I just don't know that they're going to be able to recoup all that. It depends on some really, really good drafting and team building, and I'm just not a believer.
If they draft well, I mean, they have 3 first-round picks next year now. they have their own. They have the Texans, and they have the Steelers.
Didn't they get 2 from the Texans?
Well, right, but not both next year.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Never mind. I didn't say that. Don't worry. But, all right. Anyways. So, yeah, Dolphins, they're garbage this year. And we all get a chance to play them. So, hopefully, none of us look like big fucking idiots and lose to them. I guess except for the Ravens, because they already, had their fun. But hopefully the Steelers and the
beat
Browns.
them harder than the juggernaut Patriots.
Yeah,
who are only up like 10-0 at halftime or whatever the fuck it was.
What a fucking embarrassment.
What's that?
Patriots have a better defense then, according to that rationale?
Maybe.
Yeah,
That's
I don't know.
Maybe. I think
there has actually been
possible.
some talk about the Patriots
defense
this year.
is pretty good.
Yeah. We'll see.
They look pretty good against the Steelers.
Well, luckily we all get to play them this year as well. So, it's like they offset one another. We all get to play the Dolphins and we all get to play the Patriots. We all get to play the Jets too, which we'll talk about when we get to that. And then we all get to play the Bills, who I don't know, I'm not very high on, but
we all get to play the Seahawks. We all get to play the Rams.
Well, I was talking about the fact that the Patriots are obviously an extremely difficult to win against, and then we get 3 easy wins in return. That's what I was trying to get at.
It's like being in the AFC East every year. Just get to beat up on the Dolphins and the Bills and the Jets.
Yeah, pad your stats. But anyways. All right, so let's roll. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, now that we've talked about the Steelers' big addition, should we talk about why they made it?
Yeah, their big subtraction.
We should.
Yeah, take it off. Take it away.
Well, the Steelers are officially 0-2. I'm not a big statistic guy because it requires me to remember too much, but I'm going to throw a couple at you. Do you guys know what the statistical odds of the Steelers making the playoffs is now that they're 0-2?
Jeez. Well, how do they do it?
Like a percentage?
Yeah.
Yeah, statistically, what odds does an 0-2 team have of making the playoffs? Based on
0-2 or the Steelers?
17%.
Yeah, 0-2, it's like...
Probably small.
I think they still have a decent chance, actually. But it's not good. It's like 40 or 30 or something, probably.
It's 11.
Oh, really? Wow.
It's 11. However, the Steelers have gone 0-2 4 times since 1989. Do you know how many times they have made the playoffs out of those 4?
4.
3 is the correct answer.
They didn't do it last year, Justin.
The big question is they weren't 0-2 last year. They're 0-1-1.
Oh.
True.
Is this a version of the NFL's 11%? Are they that 0-2, or is this the Steelers? Is this the Steelers we're talking about with a 75% chance of still making the playoffs? I don't know. I will say that no one knows because everybody defines their team by its star quarterback, the leader, the driver of the team, and we don't have one because Ben Roethlisberger threw a pretty standard-looking pass in the second quarter.
Yeah.
And he did some Ben Roethlisberger stuff where he turned to the sideline and looked like he got shot. Not uncommon. This happens 3 or 4 times a year. And then he stayed in, of course, and he threw the ball like on the next play and did it again. But actually, it seems like it's a big deal because he had surgery and now he's out for the year.
Right.
So that was a bummer.
Did you see the close-up when it happened, like how his arm just like tensed up?
No.
It's like almost like if you've ever seen someone who's like popped like a major muscle from the bone and their muscle just kind of like and cramps up like real bad. That's what it looked like. I don't think that's what it was. I haven't gotten the details on what it was, but it looked kind of gross when they did it.
I think it was a UCL, the Tommy John ligament, right? Is that right?
I haven't actually heard like the official injury. I just heard he's out with an elbow injury for the year, but that's the rumor. That's what everybody seems to be saying. I'm not going to go through the full game script here. I'll start out with what I took to be a positive. And I will say this, much of Steeler Nation is panicking about this team, panicking about the offense not being able to sustain drives, panicking about the running game, panicking about their star quarterback being out for the year, panicking about wide receivers not being able to get open. These are not falsehoods. but I'm not panicking. I am not panicking. I will say that James Conner's statistics have been poor, but if you actually watch him, he is breaking tackles. He is pushing the pile forward. We talked a lot about Seattle's linebackers, particularly Wagner, late last week.
Hmm.
And when he hit Joe Mixon crumpled like a paper mache doll of a little delicate squirrel. But when Connor ran into Wagner or any linebacker or anybody, he was falling forward or he was breaking tackles. Now he averaged like 2 point whatever yards a carry, and they couldn't get it going. I'm a little disappointed in the offensive line, frankly, because I think James Conner's running with heart. I thought the other player that showed a lot of heart was actually Vance McDonald. I know you're not going to want to hear that, Joey. He didn't have a huge statistical game, but when he was getting passes thrown his way, only two.
Two tutters.
Yeah, two touchdowns. I was going to say he had more than two
Yeah.
catches. He was breaking tackles. He was steady. He had no drops. He's a little bit of a dropsy guy. So I was pleased with those guys. I was actually pleased with Mason Rudolph. Didn't have a perfect game, but when you have a backup quarterback, and we talked about this already, I think, earlier in the year, but it's about poise in the pocket. He stood in there. He made slick moves within the pocket. He ran when he needed to, but not all the time. And he went through his progressions. He did not panic. So I believe that he can be like a replacement level quarterback. And I think that if he can play as well as Andy Dalton, the Steelers can still compete for the division. Did you guys think the Steelers did anything good?
Well, statistically, looking at Mason Rudolph versus Ben Roethlisberger, I think Mason Rudolph did pretty well. Probably better than most people would have expected him to do from the stance as a backup quarterback. I couldn't help but wonder whether or not the Steelers were lamenting trading away Josh Dobbs at that moment. But obviously, with the way that Mason Rudolph looks, it looks like there's obviously a reason that they decided to keep him on the roster instead. I will say though that there's kind of two sides to the coin. Number one, going against the Seahawks, who are known to have a good defense, obviously. Mason Rudolph looked successful. In fact, statistically was more successful than Ben Roethlisberger, right? But on the flip side is that nobody really has any collective footage or expectations from him. So as that comes throughout the year, there's obviously the warning of, people are going to know what to expect from him. They're going to collect the information on him, and he could fall flat on his face. So we really don't know much about, I guess, his prowess just quite yet. But if he continues anything like what he had this game, then the Steelers will be just fine. But I don't know. I think that would be the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, I think Mason looked good. A lot of the miscues seem to be like some miscommunication stuff. I know that early in his career, a big knock on him was that he was kind of timid.
Yeah.
Seemingly not confident, wouldn't take chances. That didn't seem to be a problem yesterday. I thought he looked good. I think an unsung hero in the comeback or keeping the game close, Mason's going to get credit for being the one on the field playing quarterback when the Steelers scored most of their points. But the defense really saved the day and kept the game close with some clutch turnovers. So that was nice. Devin Bush redeemed himself a little bit at the end with that fumble return after getting an education from Will Disley, which is fine. He's a rookie linebacker in his second game of the year. So I think that's encouraging from the defense. Stephon Tuitt had a really good, at least first half. I didn't notice him much in the second half, but they seem to have some juice when Mason came in, which was cool to see. And the last thing I'll say that they did well was they benched Dante Moncrief.
Bingo.
That was a good move.
It's a good move.
He has 5 drops in 11 targets. For those of you that don't keep track of drops, be it per target in the NFL, that's horrific. It could be the worst in the history of anyone. It's really bad.
It's atrocious.
They also benched Ryan Switzer, so apparently all of my phone calls on the red phone are getting through to somebody. He was averaging 4 yards a punt return. I know I said I don't like statistics, but some of these are important because I'm not just a crazy kook saying that I don't like people. He's not very good, and they needed to move on. He's not a threat, like you can kick it right to him. Just kick it to Ryan. He'll probably catch it, although he muffed one. That's part of the reason he got benched. I'm going to eventually start listening to Mike Tomlin press conferences because he's one of the great coach speakers out there, and I'd like him to talk through me to our audience about what happened in these games. But I didn't do that today because I spent a lot of time at a car dealership. But we're not talking about cars. We're talking about football. So I'm going to talk about another Mike Tomlin quote, and I've said it a few times. The Steelers did not make routine plays routinely. They lost this game 28-26. I'm going to throw a few plays at you guys. In the first quarter, Sean Davis had an illegal block in the back while Mark Barron was returning a fumble for a touchdown.
It's an awful call.
It was a bad call, but it was also a really stupid football decision. He was like 10 yards behind him, and he was just bloodlust. He just wanted to make some contact with somebody. They eventually scored a touchdown, but that got a touchdown called back. That is a bad decision. That is not making a routine play, Sean. Bad job. Later, Seattle had the ball in the second quarter, and they were kicking a field goal. And Daniel McCullers basically sat his big old butt on the long snapper, which is illegal, which gave Seattle a first down. On the next play, Russell Wilson made a really nice touch pass over a quickly retreating Devin Bush to Mr. Disley for his first touchdown. So instead of it being 10-3, it was 10-7. That's a 4-point swing in a game that ended by 2 points. That is another routine play. Dan, you're just a big guy. Just push him. Just don't sit on him. Come on, guy. God, what are you doing? In the second half, the Steelers had the ball in the red zone, and Vance McDonald committed a pass interference that prevented a first down. On the next play, the Steelers were forced to kick a field goal when they could have potentially been in the red zone to score a touchdown. Moncrief, we talked about him. He got benched after he dropped a routine pass into the arms of a Seattle defender. That ended in, you guessed it, a Seattle touchdown to Mr. Disley. So, right. Then there's the big play, pass interference on 3rd down and 20, which was reviewed because of a Pete Carroll challenge. And now we can all debate whether or not that was pass interference, and it probably wasn't. But the point is that Bud Dupree did one of the great helmet-to-helmet jobs on Russell Wilson of all time on that play, and that absolutely should have been called. So these are bad decisions, right? People making bad decisions on routine plays. It's 3rd and 20. You don't have to do super heroics. Just tackle them after 15 yards. So these are big game-turning plays. Seattle scored a touchdown on that drive also. If you stop any of those with a moderate play, not even a great play, just regular, not stupidity, you probably win the game. And that's not playing that well without your starting quarterback, and your free safety goes out during the game, and your starting running back goes out during the game. So it's unfortunate, Seattle's a pretty good team. I think they earned the win, but I think that the Steelers are going to look back on this one and a lot like they look back on the Browns game last year when they missed the playoffs. Like, what could have been.
Yeah, silver lining to a disappointing home loss is that it's not like they played their best game and still lost. There's a lot of areas to improve.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was disappointing. Other things happened that I didn't like, but I don't know that they're totally worth dwelling on. I think that the Steelers historically have struggled in ways that, Joey, you don't have to worry about as much as the Ravens have very strong coordinators They scheme very well. They put their players in great, opportune positions to do great things. The Steelers gave up a touchdown when they left Terrell Edmonds on DK Metcalf in single coverage out of the slot. And he's a strong safety, and DK Metcalf runs a straight line, strong and fast. It's hard. It's hard for a guy like him to make that play. And in my opinion, he actually had pretty good coverage. Russell Wilson made a great throw.
Good throw.
But like, why do you do these things? How do you consistently get caught in these types of situations where you have players doing jobs that they're not maybe super equipped to do? It's a little frustrating, but the point here is that Mason Rudolph played pretty well. We signed Minkah Fitzpatrick, and this fan base should be excited about the future. This is the 3 out of 4 Steelers. We're going to make those playoffs. You guys are going to be sad. I'm going to be happy. There's going to be a lot of bragging, just not this week.
Also, if the Steelers make the playoffs, we can look forward to a good old-fashioned quarterback controversy in camp next year.
Where Ben Roethlisberger can be classy to the young gun, Mason Rudolph.
He says he wants to keep playing. He's already been out on the social meds saying that he's still got it in him. He's coming back stronger than ever and all that jazz. So
he's already campaigning.
Yep.
Well, I'm done. I don't want to talk about my team anymore.
Yeah, I was about to say, let's move on. Let's talk about the Bengals. Another, I would say, disappointment for sure. So I have been on like the hate train as far as the 49ers go, but I have to eat crow on this one for sure. Now, I am still on the Garoppolo hate train though. Don't fret. Get aboard while you can. All right. So in summary, this game was dictated by the run game for certain. The Bengals defense had like nothing fucking going for them, specifically as far as running goes. So total rushing yards, 259 yards rushing. That's what the 49ers had. 7 yards per carry at the start of the fourth quarter. That's fucking ridiculous and kind of embarrassing, right? We know that the Bengals defensive line is good, but I think they fell into some old bad habits that we saw the year before last, that we talked about, which is where they were extremely aggressive at getting to the quarterback and so aggressive that they completely forgot that somebody could possibly run the ball right past them. Happened way too often. As far as the pass game goes, now this is where I'm going to kind of talk about the 49ers and talk about why I'm still on the Garoppolo hate train. So many of those passing yards, first off, most of them came in the fourth quarter, which is when the Bengals were already kind of so far behind and dejected. But also, I really have to tip my hat to the whole Kyle Shanahan offense. I mean, like, when Garoppolo was throwing the ball, he was throwing the ball to completely wide open receivers, like on their own little island, no one around them, nothing to care about, no concerns in the world. Also, with this fucking offensive line that couldn't let anybody pass them. I know what you're thinking. Aren't you supposed to be talking about the Bengals? Yeah, I am, but I had to eat a little bit of crow talking about the 49ers for a minute. So if you would like, we can talk about the ineptitude of the Cincinnati Bengals in this game. They just couldn't get anything going. I think because of how just significant and steamrolled the offense was. Joe Mixon, again, couldn't get off the ground very much. Let's see, how many yards did he have? He averaged 1.55 yards per attempt. Not very good for a franchise star running back.
When the game was close, he had a couple nice runs, and every single time it happened, without fail, holding penalty.
Yeah. There was quite a bit of penalties that were against the Bengals. And, I don't know. I'm on the fucking refs hate squad also. I'm just on everybody's hate train. I don't know. But there were some questionable calls in the favor of the 49ers, but I'm not going to get down there because Joey's eyes are already rolling so far into the back of his head. But yeah, there were definitely some penalties against the Bengals that clearly did not help them. Almost akin to the Browns. Not quite as bad as the Browns last week, but that was definitely for certain. Andy Dalton statistically had a decent game, but he just couldn't seal the deal, man. The 49ers defense is actually pretty good. Last week when we did the preview, I kind of talked and said that the 49ers defense, I was like, yeah, what do they really got going for them? And I guess I kind of learned what they really kind of got going for them. I mean, Richard Sherman is still athletic as fuck, man. He's still making tons of crazy plays out there, even after he had his Achilles separated from his foot. What was it, last year? The year before last, I want to say?
Year before.
Yeah, so I don't know. Bengals defense was inept, mostly I think due to Kyle Shanahan's offense, and also because I think their defense just struggles, period. Offense just couldn't get off the ground. Like you said, penalties were really holding them back. And, yeah, Dalton just couldn't make it into the end zone, man.
If you're looking for a scapegoat, Lou Anarumo got shit pumped in this game. If you don't know who the fuck that is, it's the Bengals defensive coordinator. Paul Gunther is gone. And this guy, who I looked his name up today, just got his teeth kicked in. A lot of the Niners offense came from like screen passes and motion. Shanahan just schematically embarrassed the Bengals. Not to mention that the back end of their defense, as we know, is already weak. Not much else to say. The D-line, the 49ers offensive line is actually pretty good.
Very good, yeah.
And yeah, the Bengals just disappointing home loss, got out of control late.
Right. And again, statistically, Tyler Boyd, 122 yards, 10 for 10. But, yeah, man, I don't know.
I'm going to be like a little bit nicer before I completely shit on the Bengals, because I thought at the beginning of this game, everybody was doing the same stuff, which on offense was a lot of misdirection. Joey kind of said it with screen passes. The 49ers even at one point ran a play that I should know the name of. They throw it to the receiver backwards, and he throws it all the way back, across the field backwards to another guy, and then they run. They were doing a lot of clever misdirection to make Cincinnati's defensive line run. I didn't even, to me, really feel like they were making bad decisions as players. They were just in plays that forced that sort of running one way, recovering a long distance the other way, which is smart. And the 49ers executed those plays really well and scored points, and it led to open holes in the running game because their offensive line is good. Secondly, the Bengals linebackers stink. All four of them. They stink. They can't make tackles. They can't do anything in coverage. I think that the Bengals secondary is okay in coverage, and Jesse Bates can tackle, but overall, they can't tackle either. So once a running back gets 3 yards, he's basically guaranteed 9. It's just a mess. And then the Bengals were doing the same stuff on offense. They were running some rub routes. They were doing some screens, but Joey called it penalties. Every time they would get it going with this clever kind of stuff to basically offset San Francisco's defensive line the same way, they would they'd shoot themselves in the foot. So I actually thought the offense looked pretty good early, and they were moving the ball well using the same sort of techniques. They just weren't doing it well, and then they got behind by a lot and then just lost. Also, if you're concerned about Cincinnati's offensive line, starting left guard Michael Jordan was carted off. So basically they just got worse than what they are. So good luck. Good luck next week.
So like we said, if you're a Bengals fan, if you're out there somewhere, let us know.
What was the final score? 49-17?
I think it was 41-17.
41.
We should probably say that. 41-17. Bengals lose badly.
That being said, the last two games for San Francisco, their opponent had 17 points both times. So Steelers 17 points next week.
I'll guarantee 18.
Oh, he's taking the over. He said hammer that shit home. All right. All right.
Also to note for the Bengals, B.W. Webb got injured. He's been playing a significant amount of cornerback for them. And what that means is while Darqueze Dennard is still on the PUP list, the Bengals are about to see a lot more Tony McRae, who is stinky.
Fart noises.
Poor guys. Poor Bungles. Poor Bungles.
Yep.
I will say that I thought they drew up a good game plan. I really do. I think that they had a good game plan and they called good plays. I think the offense has potential. And the defensive line, I still think is good.
Right.
Also, Carl Lawson left the game with a hamstring injury.
Tyler Eifert's still there, though.
Yeah, he was good.
Still kicking.
Still kicking.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
Yeah, I know, right? He had like 3 receptions or something, I want to say, for like 9 yards. I don't remember. He's on my bench in fantasy. I figured, why not? We'll see what happens. But we'll see how long he can stay healthy. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's like the story of the Bengals, like consistently. Impressive offense, whether it be by the run, by the pass. Dalton, he has a good game, like over 300 yards passing this game. He had over 400 last game. Somehow manages an interception. When you review the tape, interception probably wasn't his fault, but it doesn't matter. It's on his stat list, right? And then defensive line, aggressive, hungry, completely ignores the person that has the ball. And then the linebackers just basically, I don't know, can't get anything done.
We agree that the Steelers are still above the Bengals, right?
I would actually probably say so. Man, it's tough because we don't know about Mason Rudolph. But yeah, I would still say so. Oh yeah, and of course another Bengals trope, bad offensive line. So I mean, it's like the same Bengals for the last 3 years. I don't know. Nothing has really changed, even though some players may have. So I don't know. Even Hugh Jackson coming in and leaving. All right. You guys ready to move on or no?
Yeah, we spent like 5 more minutes than we should have on that tank job.
Yeah, I know, right? All right, let's talk about the Cleveland Browns, your Cleveland Browns. So Chad actually asked me before we started the podcast, he said, hey, man, you got to win. That's good. And I actually had a couple people texting me and messaging me saying, hey, man, you guys got to win. That's good. You happy? And the answer is no, not really, to be honest with you. I think that this should have been a redemption game, in my opinion. This should have been like 40-3, I mean, maybe even 40-0. Like I'll let the field goal go, I guess, right? But I think that this should have been much more significant than it was. I think that Chad, before we started the podcast, hit the nail on the head. They kind of just knew they had the lead. They knew that they had, everything going forward. And then in the fourth quarter, there was no hustle, no hurry up. They were just too comfortable. And, Chad asked me last week, what are the Browns after that loss? And I said they should be hungry. And, I just didn't see it. I don't know. It's this win, as much as it was a win. And, it's funny because after the Titans, I was like, yeah, I watched the footage 2 or 3 more times, and I'm a little bit happier than I was when the game started. Well, this game, I'm actually, less happy than when the game started. It's weird, man. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. I don't know what to expect from the Browns. I mean, look, C.J. Mosley was out. Sam Darnold had mono. Trevor Siemian ended up going away, right? And again, I know the defense did put up some good stoppages in that sense, I guess, but I don't know. I'm disappointed. So, for example, also, my fellow Clevelanders that I was talking to were all also disappointed. So most of the Browns fan base shares this sentiment. So before I get into stats or statistics or games relevant stuff, do you guys have any opinion on that?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing to note is that OBJ came back way ahead of planned. He was supposed to come back for the AFC Championship game, but he decided to come back and just get right into it. Right. And I'd say the alignment on this sports car is fixed. And I don't want to do all the synopsis of the plays because he's your new big hero. So why don't you, Justin, jump back in and describe the heroics of this sports car, this finely tuned machine?
Okay, so Odell Beckham Jr. Chad was just like, let's get this train back on the tracks, bud. No, so Odell Beckham. So first off, there was a couple of throws that Baker had to Odell Beckham that were a little bit disconcerting. It seemed like Baker liked to throw high to Odell Beckham, and that's where all the misses and incompletions to Odell came from. And I'm wondering if that's like a chemistry thing, like Odell saying, look, I like it high, right? Because I have not seen that from Baker in the past. So I think that's something they're still kind of fleshing out as far as any incompletions to him. So let's, put the bad in there. Now let's talk about the good. So first off, he had that.
If he likes it high, he should watch Lamar Jackson play quarterback.
Yeah.
Hey-o.
But a bump.
So he had that spectacular one-handed catch that everyone's talking about. It was pretty golden, man. It was a really nice catch. I don't really know what else to say about it. It's in the highlight reels. It's probably been all over SportsCenter. If you have any sort of pulse whatsoever on sports media, they've been talking about it. So I don't even really know what else to say about it. The one that I want to talk about is the 89-yard run for the touchdown, which is the longest of Odell Beckham's career. Man, it was really just the right look is what happened on that play. Odell Beckham kind of ran up the middle, and then there's only one safety back there, and he just kind of cut in between and around and just went to the house with it. It was pretty pleasing to see. Obviously, the speed that he had running past everybody, even as they tried to catch up to him, and went in for the touchdown. One thing I want to comment about with that's not Odell Beckham related is Damian Ratley, actually. So Damian Ratley started on the opposite side of the field and behind Odell Beckham, but by the end of the play was right behind him, poising himself for a block. That's some speed, because Odell Beckham was going as fast as he possibly could. The safeties and the corners were going as fast as they possibly could, and it made me stop and think, like, damn, maybe Damian Ratley is actually pretty fast. And I was like, well, then what's the issue? What's going on with him? I don't know. Maybe it's really hard to catch footballs in the NFL. Who knows? But I would, implore you to watch that play again to see how quickly he kind of caught up with everybody and was able to kind of try to throw in at least a block behind Odell Beckham. That kind of impressed me.
Yeah, I think that's kind of not underrated, but an overlooked part of his game. He did that a lot in New York. Take a slant to the house and run away from everybody, and it gets overshadowed by the insane catches and the one-handed warm-up routine in the back of the end zone that he does during games. But Odell Beckham's fast as shit, and he's not a one-trick pony.
I was going to say, you just got the prototypical Odell Beckham experience, which is a one-handed catch and a slant turned into a massive gainer / touchdown. Like that's what he does. You just got it. So enjoy this emotion, because that's the prototypical Odell experience. The other part of it is him talking about being tough and missing weeks at a time.
Yeah, right. So it does seem to also look like, I'm not sure if this is a product of Higgins being out this game, but it does seem to look like Odell is Baker's new favorite target. I don't have the stats in front of me, but just, I guess, from the eye test, he threw to Odell significantly more than anybody else in the field. So moving on to Baker, I guess, man, Greg Williams was throwing Baker all these really crazy looks. He was throwing him this look at the beginning of the play where it was two deep safeties, and then all of a sudden he would rotate them forward, like as the snaps were kind of happening. He was trying to trick Baker up a little bit, and it seemed like it was working, which is, I think, why the offense stalled a little bit in the beginning and was having so much trouble. Baker Mayfield, 19 for 35. It's not awful, I guess. And again, they did win the game, but it's not, I guess, where I'd like him to be. I don't know. Something just doesn't feel that good about it. 19 for 35, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. It just doesn't feel that great. But I think that's why. And it also reminded me that actually, even C.J. Mosley aside, who obviously is, probably one of the best linebackers, or play calling linebackers, middle linebackers in the game right now, they still do have a really impressive defense as well. And I also still give a lot of respect to Greg Williams, even though apparently word is the Browns defense didn't really like him that much, which was surprising for me to find out. But so that, I guess, made me feel a little bit better about the lack of productivity from Baker, and even from Chubb, who rushed for like 68 yards, I want to say. I don't know. It just didn't feel that great. But what do you guys got anything to say about that?
I'll start positive. I want to throw a little sunshine on you here. I like the decision to put Jarvis Landry in as the punt returner. He's going to get less targets in the receiving game now that they have all these options, so he's got that energy.
Yeah.
I thought he was pretty dynamic. I think he's going to get more dynamic as the season goes along. He can make people miss. He can create big splash plays for you. So I think that that's because of all the talent they have on offense now, a good use of his time, and it's going to keep him involved and keep him getting the ball and being excited. I know you're going to just be all thrilled about Myles Garrett, so I'm going to actually switch negative right away. Can we talk about Myles Garrett's inability to not hit the quarterback 4 seconds after he throws it? What's with all the penalties, Jack?
So I don't know about 4 seconds after he threw it. He
Five.
did get roughing. He did get roughing the passer for like the whole body weight thing, right? The body weight, if you can see from the camera, there you go, body weight thing, which was, I don't know, it was fucking awful in my opinion. But it is what it is, man. It's the new NFL.
It's a rule.
Yeah, whatever. It is what it is. So again, he also had false starts. And apparently that was his thing last year as well. So it's just something that he's got to work on, period. So that's, I guess, the negative with Myles Garrett. But the positive being that Myles Garrett is a fucking monster. He's just a beast. I don't know what to tell you. So he had 5 quarterback hits, 3 tackles for loss. So I don't know, man. I love Myles Garrett. He broke Trevor Siemian, the backup quarterback. And then... who was the kid that came in? I already forget his name.
Luke Falk from Washington State.
That's right.
Quarterback factory, Washington State. They got 2 starting quarterbacks in the NFL now.
Yeah, quarterback factory. So, but yeah, I don't know. I love Myles Garrett. He fucking killed it. So that was exciting.
How did you feel about the offensive line?
I think the offensive line didn't do... I mean, I honestly, at least in the beginning of the game, was really good and put together. I remember very specifically thinking about the improvements in the offensive line and how they looked as a unit. So I don't know what the Jets' defensive line is supposed to be. So it's kind of tough for me to put a mark on that. But, I mean, I was satisfied for the most part. I know Baker had a little bit of pressure, but also Greg Williams throws a fucking blitz like every other play. Me and Joey were texting, joking about it, that at least what I was saying is that a blitz for Greg Williams is only if there's 6+ people coming, because he's always going to throw 5 at you. So any pressure Baker was under was just because of the scheme that Greg Williams tends to run.
I agree. I thought they were improved. I thought that in a lot of cases, Baker had a really clean pocket, and you really notice because Baker doesn't run a lot of quick first read throws. Like, he likes to stand there and survey his kingdom.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of clean pockets. I thought in pass protection, I was overall pretty pleased, especially based on who's out there. I was a little bit disappointed in the running game.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that they were pretty inconsistent. It should be acknowledged that they did a great job on Nick Chubb's big touchdown run.
Yes.
But other than that, I thought that they really made him work hard just to basically get the football and fall forward.
Right. I mean, they kept trying to run. I mean, which obviously you can't blame them for, but I just didn't feel like they had a whole lot of success with it as a whole. Dontrell Hilliard was out with a concussion, so they were running Dearness Johnson, who during the preseason, he had a couple hot flashes. They did play quite a bit of him, but he didn't run very well either. So Hilliard ran pretty well in game 1, in my opinion, when he was in. So I'm excited to see if he comes back, how he kind of switches out with Chubb to give him those breaks. And obviously, hey, we still got Kareem Hunt coming game 8, so we'll see how that turns out. But
none of them block.
yeah. The last thing I want to talk about was Le'Veon Bell. Is that the last thing I wrote down? Well,
he did pretty well.
Yeah. Well, so Siebert as the one other thing I want to talk about too. He was perfect. That's all I got to say. Keep it up. I don't want to jinx him. All right, Le'Veon Bell.
We call that Sunday in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Perfect kicking.
So Le'Veon Bell, he was pretty much the majority of the offense, with the exception, again, towards late in the third quarter, a little bit of the beginning of the fourth quarter, you had Robbie Anderson, which Joey talked about last podcast a little bit, about how he was potentially kind of a little bit of a threat. He had 2 or 3 good catches, but, it was tough because I don't want to say it was in garbage time, but it was in garbage time. But
And Luke Falk was throwing to him.
right. So Le'Veon Bell was the majority of the offense. Something that I noticed particularly is I thought Kirksey was over Le'Veon Bell quite a bit. So I was pretty happy with that as far as linebacker play goes, Kirksey and Schobert. But for whatever reason, Kirksey like stuck out in my head for a lot of plays, getting to Le'Veon Bell. So they obviously Bell had some yards because he was the only piece on the offense, but I think if you watch the game as a whole, they did actually a pretty good job at stopping one of what I think is probably one of the most dynamic running backs that we have in the league right now. I mean, he's pretty fucking crazy. He's pretty fucking good.
I would agree. I think that, yeah, the result of it was he somehow still was breaking tackles and getting them a few first downs here and there. That's with him being the only thing going. So, yeah, they gave up 3 points, so they did a good enough job.
Right. But, yeah, so the Browns beat someone that we expected them to beat. They did not beat them the way I think that most people expected them to be beaten, which has left at least the Browns fans I've talked to not happy. I guess
23-3. Justin is disappointed.
Yeah. There were just so many key pieces. I was like really looking forward to like a 41-17 game with the Browns. You know, seeing the offense really put those pieces together and gel the way that we wanted them to. Baker Mayfield almost got Njoku murdered on the field. Like we almost saw a man die on the field because Baker Mayfield just threw that risky pass and said, "You better fucking catch this. I don't care who's around you." So we'll see when Njoku comes back, but I don't know.
I'm glad you brought up that risky pass. It seems to me like the more we see of Baker, the more appropriate Brett Favre comparisons become. While he's touted for being accurate, he wasn't incredibly accurate in this game. And I think while he very much embraces the gunslinger type of thing, he may need to dial it back a little bit. I think he takes a few too many chances. It's bearing out in his completion percentage. When you're in the 50s, I don't know what 19 out of 35 is.
It was 54, I think.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
He only had one pick, and he threw 3, I think, all in the second half last week, which, I mean, you're trying to get back into a blowout, a game that's getting out of hand in front of your eyes, and it is what it is. But since he's started, I guess, so week 4 last year, I saw a stat that he's tied for the league lead in interceptions. That is not something that successful quarterbacks do.
Yeah.
And in short stretches, you can overcome that and still win games. But long term, it's going to be something that he's going to need to adjust something about his approach, and just dial that rabid aggression back just a little bit, take a few less chances.
Yeah. So
yeah, I thought the commentators did a decent job of highlighting a few times when he threw kind of deep into collapsing zone coverage, when he had a wide open crosser in the, intermediate middle of the field and stuff like that. We'll see. I mean, he's pretty accurate, so 19 for 35 and hitting those big plays sometimes is just as good as 25 for 35 and averaging 6 yards a throw. So we'll see. He'll find it.
Yeah. And it's easy to forget that he just finished his 16th game.
Right.
He's still a very young quarterback. He's not a finished product. And he still has room to develop and grow and become better.
Yeah, and I think in those 16 games too, there was some stat that they kept touting that was like he's like tied for third most yards or some shit like that after 16 games or something. I don't know. I probably should have brought the stat with me, but
that might be the first.
point that I'm trying to make is that in those 16 games, he overall still has had some success, but it's it's tough because you have to remember 14 of those games were last year, right? We're talking about this year. We're talking about the now, right? So
Yeah, I
two
mean
of
they
these
won by
games,
20 points. It's nitpicking, but I think that's the first negative thing I've said about Baker Mayfield to anybody ever, probably.
right?
I still think he's a phenomenal quarterback. Just starting to see this year with all the expectations and all the craziness, the offense alone has been a little underwhelming, and
Right.
I
That's
I think that plays into it a little bit.
yeah. So speaking of underwhelming, let's move on to the first place in the AFC North. 2-0, undefeated Baltimore Ravens.
I don't know if you've heard, but this is the 100th season of the NFL, and if setting a record that nobody's done before in 100 seasons is
Is that what setting a
underwhelming,
record is?
then call Lamar Jackson underwhelming. That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, first quarterback in 100 years to pass for 250 yards and run for 100 in a single game.
Right.
So
That's embarrassing if you ask me.
Yet they scored the same number of points as the underwhelming Browns. How do you figure?
That's right. That's right. I think I kind of saw this coming. I with the cornerback injuries, I think that played a big part in allowing the Cardinals to have some success on offense and keep it close. Lamar had to utilize his running, and he did it successfully, but the inaccuracy kind of showed back up when guys aren't open all the time. And when Lamar's inaccurate, he's inaccurate high, which is the most dangerous way to be inaccurate. So that's not great. They still won relatively comfortably. It was a 1-2 possession game pretty much the whole game. I never felt like the game was in doubt. Kyler Murray had flashes. He's hella athletic. The Cardinals play 4 wide receivers more than probably anybody in the league from what I've seen. They're constantly in 4 wide receiver sets, which is a lot to ask of any secondary. So as they become more comfortable in the offense, that would be great for them, I guess. Terrell Suggs had kind of an underwhelming game, which he talked about coming back to Baltimore and it being a really weird, surreal experience to go to the visitors' locker room, and I'm sure that was kind of strange.
Little emotional.
And I think maybe this game had a little bit of a trappy feel to it also. It being a home opener after a demolition of the Dolphins and the Chiefs on the horizon. So positives from the game. Lamar ran very successfully without really taking too many hits. He scampered out of bounds a lot. The deep ball is still very good. I've been very pleased with deep ball accuracy. He had the pass that pretty much sealed the deal at the end of the game was a 41-yard completion to Hollywood Brown, which Hollywood was covered. It was very reminiscent of his cousin, Antonio. Just made a great catch with not very much room down the sideline.
Can we pause on that?
Come very familiar with. Yeah.
Because one of my big highlights of this game is Hollywood Brown just standing out. He ran way more routes this game than last game. It seemed like last game he controlled the whole thing, but I think he ran like 8 total routes and he had 4 catches for 1,000,000 yards. But
Yeah.
he ran like 30-something routes this game. He was actively part of the entire game plan. He caught short passes and broke tackles. He caught some intermediate passes. And on that deep pass, he was covered. But one of the big wide receiver tricks is you need to know where the sideline is, and you need to give your quarterback room to throw away from the defender and still give you room to catch it. He ran a really good route there and allowed Lamar Jackson to put that ball over the shoulder and still give himself room to catch it. I thought it was a really, really good play from a receiver that I was really looking forward to making fun of you about not contributing this year. Props.
Yeah, he and Mark Andrews both had fantastic games.
I know I have him on fantasy.
On the flip side of that, I am a little concerned that Lamar depends on them too much. I think he forced to them a little bit a few times. I would like to see Willie Snead more involved. I'd like to see Boykin more involved. I think he had a few targets. But yeah, Hollywood really showed his versatility, that he was involved in the short and intermediate game, not just dropping bombs. I think Mark Ingram had a great game. He's still hard-nosed, bulldog type of runner that kind of establishes the vibe that I think the Ravens want to have this year, the identity. And he is going to be a key to playing some of these juggernauts offensively in the AFC with the Pats and the Chiefs. You want to keep the ball away from them. You want to consume the clock. And the run game is going to be a key for that. And I've been very, very happy with Mark Ingram. Even had some Justice Hill fun in this game. So I think offensively, pretty pleased. Defensively, up front, I was happy. Pernell McPhee got in a lot. Judon was around the ball and hassling Kyler Murray a whole bunch. I'm concerned about the back end of the defense, especially when you're spread out like Arizona. Arizona gave everybody the blueprint, and Arizona is not on the level of the Ravens go to Arrowhead next week, and the Chiefs going 4 wide with Sammy Watkins and Mecole Hardman and all those guys, and having to contend with Travis Kelce, it's going to be a tall task. Patrick Mahomes, before we started the podcast, I watched the Chiefs highlights. Patrick Mahomes has so much arm talent. It's stupid. And they just went off on the Raiders in the second quarter. So that's concerning going forward, not just next week, but long term. The Ravens started 2-0. It's early to look forward to the playoffs, but you got to keep these teams on your radar. And I don't know. It'll be the same story in December and January. Hopefully, with the Ravens, they can get the defense into form, really control the clock, pound the rock, and play Ravens football.
Look, man,
But
we'll talk about it next week, but the Chiefs only play football for 1 quarter. So as long as your team can play for 3, you'll be fine. All right? Don't sweat it.
I have more to say about the Chiefs.
No, yeah, we'll
matchup,
talk
but
about it next week.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, not next week, Thursday.
I mean, I think it's the marquee game next week, but
Yeah, probably.
I'm not done talking about this week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I called
go
it,
ahead.
man. I talked about this on Thursday, that the Ravens touted secondary was giving gaps, especially in the deep sideline areas of the field, and they did it. They did it again. Now, I agree with you that Arizona was probably uniquely suited to exploit this, but you even said it, Joey. Oh, Larry Fitzgerald's old and slow. Well, what's he doing running?
I thought
wide
about that.
and
Yeah.
30
Yep.
yards down the field. Like, Jesus Christ. And everyone's guarding him. He's got dreadlocks for days. You can't miss him, like.
The biggest ass in football.
And it seems as though they're just throwing away from Earl Thomas, which basically, I mean, that means it's just as simple for the Ravens too. It's like you need to be conservative on half the field. Like, and they're getting wide open. And this is when you're up by 2 scores and you know they're throwing the ball and you're presumably trying to guard against the big play. I think it's like a legitimate concern. I think it's
Yeah.
pretty safe to say that it's not going to be resolved next week. But after next week, once you're done playing against offensive juggernauts and you go back to maybe playing regular teams, I'll be interested to see what happens, because I honestly think like the Ravens dominated 2 bad teams, but in that domination, we saw like legitimate holes in what is
Yeah.
supposedly the strength of their defense. And I'm just curious to see how that resolves itself over the course of the season.
Losing Jimmy Smith, like losing Tavon Young in the preseason was rough, but it's something that I think the depth could cover up. Losing Jimmy Smith is, depending how you see Marlon Humphrey, 1A or 1B as far as corners on this football team. He's just as good as Marlon Humphrey. And so, who was the team's MVP last year, named by the team as the MVP, Marlon Humphrey, a corner who didn't even play full time. Excuse me. The way that Wink Martindale rotates defensive backs in and out, Brandon Carr was in a lot. So that's how good Marlon Humphrey is, and not having Jimmy Smith hurts a lot. Losing a corner of that caliber, Anthony Averett is out there, and the caliber of receiver that Arizona has is fine. But Anthony Averett is probably fixing to get exposed next week.
I think Tony Jefferson too needs to do some workout with tape. He needs to,
Yeah.
make a better plan, because he's one of the stronger players on that defense, and I don't think he's shown it so far in 2 weeks. I will say this: the Ravens totally recovered in the red zone. Once the field got compact, they held the Cardinals to not much success there. So you got to be pleased about that. I will ask you one more question about this game, and to me, it was the running game. I felt like it was really effective. I felt like they ran the ball well, but it didn't feel like they ran it much. Do you have any
No.
inkling as to why they decided to go to the air so often when they were having success in the running game? Like, what do you think that was all about?
No idea. I didn't write it down, but I noticed that during the game because I thought about the inexplicable shift last year when we started the season with Flacco. It was like all of a sudden, and it was a different offensive coordinator, Marty Morningweg, and not Greg Roman, but they just got pass happy for a team that's been traditionally a strong running team. First downs are, I think, a very big indicator to what a team wants to be offensively in a game. If they run on first down, which is becoming less and less common as the NFL shifts to a passing league, teams are using the short pass on first down in substitution of a running game a lot. So I don't know if they were just feeling themselves from week one with Lamar going off, or they saw something they felt they could exploit with the injuries that the Cardinals have in their secondary, or Patrick Peterson being suspended. But I agree. I think Mark Ingram had a fantastic game, but he didn't rush for 100 yards, I don't think. So yeah, their rushing stats are always going to look good when Lamar runs for 120 yards. But yeah, I don't have an answer for it. I did also notice that, and it's something they're going to need to return to. I think they can't forget that they need to be a run. They can't get caught up in Lamar's success against a couple weaker teams in the NFL and forget that their identity on offense should be run first.
Yeah, I guess my only interpretation of it would be they felt that this was a team that they could beat, even though it was a close game. So, like we were talking about last week, it's important to get Lamar off to the right start where he feels comfortable throwing the ball. So they said, if this is the time to do that, so let's do that. That's the only thing I could possibly kind of justify it with. It's an interesting kind of dichotomy. Look at that, Stephen A. In the team and this game, because like we were talking about with the positives of Lamar Jackson, not only in, again, his growing confidence in throwing the football, but his all-around stats, right, setting a record, but then also more holes that are becoming apparent in the defense, a defense that has been, historically, in recent history, even historically, has been one of the best defenses in the league. And now we're seeing these holes. So, like, this game that I think people expected again, kind of like with the Browns, a much more separated outcome. Expresses some concerns as well, but we'll see. Hey, man, we will see. It's still a W. You're still on top of the division, so.
Yeah, still 2-0. It's kind of nitpicking, but right. I think we'll have a lot of things to nitpick this week coming up with the defense. But that's to be expected. I think pretty much every defense in the league is going to have that type of week when they play the Chiefs.
Yeah. So, but all right, let's start to wrap things up. We're going to do what we're doing every single week on the review episodes. That's right. The review episodes are on Tuesdays. Preview episodes are on Thursdays. Mark your calendars. But on the review episodes, we're naming our AFC North Offensive Player of the Week and Defensive Player of the Week. So I'm going to kick it off because I just think it's almost a no-brainer in my opinion. But Odell Beckham Jr., I mean, come on, right? 89 yards, the best, longest run, or I guess catch and run of his career, right? That fantastic one-handed catch that he came back to MetLife Stadium with. Everyone's talking about it. Odell Beckham Jr., my nominee.
I mean, Odell Beckham is sure. I mean, there's a lot of flash there.
Yeah, from the cameras.
Did he set any all-time NFL records this week?
He set Odell Beckham Jr.'s, OBJ's all-time NFL record for longest catch.
He had the longest catch in NFL history?
For Odell Beckham, yeah.
Has anybody ever had a performance better than he did?
That's not important, man. Like, you are your own best critic, right?
So I don't know if you heard, but something happened in Baltimore on Sunday. That's never happened before.
Right.
With Cam Newton or Mike Vick, Randall Cunningham, Doug Flutie, all notable dual threat quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson threw for 250 plus yards and ran for 100 plus yards. And no other quarterback's ever done that. I will say that I feel like this week we'll actually have in our poll a little bit of opposition. I think last week was kind of a landslide. Right. My nominee is Lamar Jackson for AFC North Offensive Player of the Week.
All right, Chad, you going to split the difference?
My deciding vote is Odell Beckham Jr., and I'll tell you why. Because the Ravens, on this record-breaking performance, didn't score record-breaking points. They scored a paltry 23 points. They're kicking field goals all day. If you were really record-breaking with this innovative nonsense, you'd be getting it into the end zone. Lamar Jackson had a fine day, but I'll tell you what, if you think that you aren't anything but underwhelmed by the Ravens' offensive performance, you're lying to me. You only knew that record because someone tweeted it. You would have not assumed he broke a record if you just watched that game and weren't some nerd crunching numbers and reading spreadsheets. Odell Beckham Jr. brought the heat. He brought the spectacle. He brought the experience. He took that slant and he took it all the way to the end zone. He made the one-handed catch. That's what people sign up to see. That's what they sign up to see. Odell Beckham Jr. He's the offensive player of the week.
All right. And the defensive player of the week, hey, look, don't call me a homer. It just is what it is. I think as a whole, the Browns defense did play really well, or at least they looked really good. I know you might say, look, the Jets' offensive line is just short of inept. But look, never mind it, all right? Myles Garrett, he's a monster. 3 sacks that he was not penalized for, all right? Let's just we'll leave it at that. All right. 5 QB hits overall, again, that he was not penalized for. So just putting dudes on fucking skates, all right, making them look like children. So that's going to be my nominee.
I would like to make an alternative nomination.
All right.
That nomination is Stephon Tuitt. Stephon Tuitt had 2.5 sacks this week. One thing that he did not do was simultaneously have a false start, which led to an unimpeded roughing the passer on the quarterback in the same play. Stephon Tuitt is a man of honor. He's not a savage beast that can't be controlled. And he is a defensive player. He is a player. He plays the game with his mind and his body. And that's why I nominate him as the defensive player of the week in the AFC North.
Joey, split the difference, or you got someone else?
Nah, bro. Myles Garrett.
All right.
I don't know if you heard, but he was in the body issue.
Yeah. So if your spank bank's running dry,
week, Joey.
Fellas.
That wasn't this week.
All right.
He also has 3 ankles now because he claimed one of Trevor Simeon's.
Yeah, and I believe that was on another roughing the passer penalty. So he's proud of himself.
He actually, I did watch this replay a couple times. He extended his arms over Trevor Simeon as to not land all the way on the rest of him.
Just on
it's not his fault. Trevor Simeon can't fall right.
Right.
Yinzers will back me.
Yeah, I'm sure Stephon Tuitt will win the poll.
Right. Show up. All right, so that's going to be it for this week's edition. Not even this week's, excuse me. This review edition of the AFC Northcast. If you're listening to us after the fact on your favorite podcasting platform, good for you. Make sure you also like, subscribe, all that other stuff, and tell all of your friends about us to listen to us as well. But if you're not and you'd like to catch us live and interact with us while we're doing the podcast, feel free to. We're on Twitch, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Tuesdays at 9:30 for the review episode, Thursdays at 9:30 for the preview episode. And with that, tune in Thursday at 9:30 for the preview episode. We got some interesting games coming up this week, man. Interesting games. I don't know. Whew. We might have a depressing week in the AFC North. With that, join the pigs. Well, again, the pick'em, the pro football pick'em, as Yahoo calls it, since we changed over to Yahoo this year. Pro football pick'em. Join it. Have fun. It's never too late to join. Every week we'll talk about who the people that came up on top. If you want to tell us something about your picks after you won, interact with us on Facebook, Twitter, whatever it might be, and we'll talk about it when we talk about you winning the pick'em. So, anything else you guys want to talk about? Is that all?
Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that addition affects the Steelers. I don't know. It may be scary, or it may be nothing. That's the NFL. You got anything, Joey?
Can't wait for Lamar Jackson to make Minka Fitzpatrick look like a helpless little baby in the open field.
It's on.
Deal. All right, everybody. It's been good. Thursday, 9:30. Catch us. We'll be podcasting during the most exciting game of the week.
Titans-Jags.
Titans-Jags. The annual, fucking perennial, just, I don't know, celebration of football.
If we don't get Jags mustard-colored uniforms, we riot.
For sure. That and fucking everyone's favorite Uncle Rico should be playing. So that'll be exciting. Minshew.
From QBU.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody. See you in 2 days. Take it easy.
Later.